I kept a log. That is the first thing I want you to understand, that I am the kind of person who keeps a log. I have worked the night audit shift at the Belmore Sleep Center for 4 years. I run numbers, I track patterns. When something anomalous appears in a data set, I document it, and I look for the cause. That is how I am built. So when the sleep paralysis started, that is what I did. Night 1, 2:58 in the morning onset. Duration, approximately 4 minutes. Standard presentation. Chest pressure, inability to move, awareness fully intact. I had experienced something similar once before, 7 years ago. Stress response. I wasn't worried. I noted the time and went back to sleep. Night 2, 3:03 in the morning. 6 minutes. A shape in the upper right corner of the room. This is common in sleep paralysis. The brain generates a threat presence as part of the episode. I had read enough to know that. I noted it. Night 3, 3:01 in the morning. The shape was in the same corner. I noted that too. By night 5, I had started sleeping with a voice recorder running, not because I was afraid, because I was curious, because the shape was always in the same corner, always arrived within a 2-minute window of 3 in the morning, and I wanted data. On the morning of night 5, I played back the recording. There was nothing on it. Not silence. Nothing. The file was intact. My own breathing was audible. The ambient room tone was there. But the 4 minutes of the episode, 3:02 to 3:06 by the recorder's timestamp, were gone. Not erased, not corrupted. They simply weren't there. By night 7, I had stopped calling it sleep paralysis, not because I had decided it was something else. I hadn't decided anything. I just noticed that the phrase had stopped feeling accurate, the way a word sometimes loses its meaning when you say it too many times. Sleep paralysis. I would write it in the log, and something about it felt like lying. On night 7, I set up a camera. I positioned it on the dresser, facing the bed. Wide angle, night vision enabled. I tested it before sleep. I went to bed at 11 in the evening. In the morning, I reviewed the footage. My own log said the episode began at 3:04 and ended at 3:09. On the footage, at 3:04, I went still. At 3:09, I moved my arm, then my fingers. I remember that. The specific sensation of being able to move again. The exhale, the relief that it was over. The footage agreed. At 3:09, I moved. Then I watched the rest of the footage. I watched myself lie there, motionless, eyes open, from 3:09 to 3:22, 13 minutes. I was awake. I remember being awake. I remember lying there thinking about what to write in the log, planning the exact phrasing, deciding whether to use the word entity, or presence, or just the shape. I was thinking clearly. I was alone. And on the footage, for 13 minutes after I could move, the upper right corner of the room was dark in a way that didn't match the ambient light in the rest of the frame. Not shadow, not the camera's night vision rendering. Dark in a specific way, concentrated, occupying a specific geometry. I went back through the earlier footage that night, nights 3 through 6, the same dark geometry, always in the upper right corner, always present for approximately 12 minutes. After the paralysis ended, I had been lying there, alone, thinking I was alone. I had been wrong by 12 minutes. Every night, I tried everything that a rational person tries when they understand there is a pattern they cannot account for. Night 8, I moved the bed. I pushed it to the opposite wall. I reasoned that if the presence was tied to a corner, to that specific geometry of the room, moving the bed would change the relationship between me and it. The way you avoid a draft by moving a chair. At 3:01 in the morning, I woke up unable to move. The upper right corner of the room was dark. I had moved the bed, 6 feet from where it had been. The upper right corner was now 11 feet from my head instead of 3. It didn't matter. Night 9. I didn't sleep in the apartment. I drove to my sister's house. I didn't tell her why. I said I needed company. She made the couch into a bed, and I lay there listening to the sound of a different building. Different pipes, different settling sounds, different street noise filtering through different windows. At 3:03 in the morning, I woke up unable to move. I looked at the upper right corner of my sister's living room. The geometry was there. Right before she woke up. I drove home in the dark. I sat at the kitchen table, and I wrote in the log for a long time. Then, I closed the log. I didn't open it again until after night 11. Night 10. I lay in my own bed, and I did not try to stop anything. I had run out of interventions. New location didn't work. Different room didn't work. Different building didn't work. Whatever the pattern was, it was not tied to the apartment. I watched the ceiling, and I waited. At 3:07 in the morning, the pressure started. What I want you to understand is that the pressure is not painful. It isn't violent. It doesn't feel the way a body pinned down feels. It feels like the weight of something that isn't moving, like being held, not by force, but by attention. Like whatever it is has looked at you, and that looking has mass. I lay there under that attention, fully awake, completely unable to move. In the upper right corner, the dark geometry was present. It was closer than it had ever been, not closer to my body, closer to the camera. I understood that later, when I reviewed the footage. The shape had never moved before. It had occupied the corner and stayed there. On night 10, it was approximately 2 feet forward of where it had been every previous night, closer to the lens, closer to the midpoint of the room. The paralysis broke at 3:14. I watched the corner for a long time before I moved. The footage from that night shows me lying there until 3:27, watching. 13 minutes. Then, the dark geometry in the corner was gone. I don't know where it went. I almost didn't go to sleep on night 11. I sat in the kitchen until 1 in the morning, then 2 in the morning. I made coffee I didn't drink. I wrote in the log in the past tense, as if the episode had already happened, as if documenting it in advance would make it less real when it arrived. At 2:47 in the morning, I went to bed. I lay there in the dark, and I waited. And at 3 in the morning, exactly, earlier than it had ever come, the weight settled. The paralysis was different this time. Not heavier, not more present, just different in the way a room feels different when it contains something that wasn't there before. Not a larger threat, a more specific one. I could feel it in the room, in the upper right corner, initially, then not in the corner, closer. I want to be precise here, because precision is the only thing I have right, that feels like control. The shape was approximately 18 inches from my face when it spoke. I heard it clearly. There was no ambiguity in the words, no distortion, no echo, no sense that I might have been dreaming or mishearing or constructing language from ambient noise. Words were clear and deliberate and specific. I'm not going to tell you what it said, not because I don't remember. I remember every word. I have written them in the log. In a section I don't look at, I'm not going to tell you, because I have spent 3 weeks since that night trying to understand what it meant when it said what it said. And I am not close to an answer, and I'm not sure I want company in that particular dark. What I will tell you is what I did when the paralysis finally broke. I sat up. I looked at the upper right corner of the room. Then I got out of bed, and I walked to the corner, and I stood there for a long time, with my back against the wall, and I looked at the bed, and I thought about how the footage would look in the morning. I thought about what it would show in the upper right corner of the room, and I decided I didn't want to see it. I closed the app. I deleted the recording software from my phone. I packed a bag. I've been staying at a hotel for 3 weeks. I go back to the apartment once a week to get things I need. I don't stay longer than 40 minutes. I don't sleep there. I'm not sure I've been sleeping anywhere. I still keep the log. Last entry was this morning at 3:04 in the morning. I don't know what else to do with the information. If you want more stories like this, subscribe to Machina. We'll see you in the dark.